Welcome. Thank you for coming. Tonight, this is the second part of our three-part series. We're going to cover the topic of gamification. Just to cover next month, we're doing a program on virtual currency, and that'll be on Tuesday, December 17th. If you haven't signed up yet and want to, please feel free to do so. I'm pleased to welcome our panel tonight. We have at the far end my colleague Ben Esplin, who's one of the lead counsel on our social media and games team. And Ben focuses primarily on patents and is going to talk a little bit about some of the IP issues in the space tonight. Next to Ben, we have Gerard Cunningham, who is the founder and CEO of Coolbit. And to my left is Melissa Riahi, who is with the GC at Odds, which is a super secret company that no one knows about yet, but is doing some really cool stuff. So I'm going to let each of them actually just give like a minute or two about their backgrounds to kind of set the context. And we'll start with Ben down at the end.
Sure. So as Jim said, I primarily focus on patents. Like most patent attorneys, I have a technical background. I was a physics undergraduate. After I graduated from college, I was a patent examiner for a couple of years. And then after that, joined Jim. We've been working together for about a decade now. About 5 years ago, Jim and I kind of co-founded what's now called the social media and games team at Pillsbury, and have focused on a lot of the legal issues surrounding online content, user-generated content, the issues that come up when users interact with each other in persistent games and worlds online. My practice focuses primarily on patents, and as I say to some of my clients, there may be another patent attorney out there that's had their hands on more patent applications having to do with online games, but I would like to shake his hand if there is.
That's great.
Right.
Hi everyone, I'm Gerard Cunningham. I founded Coolbit about 2 years ago. Before that, I was the president of Betfair USA. Betfair is one of the largest online gambling companies in the world. It takes bets in many territories where it is regulated and legal, including the USA. We were the largest online gambling company in the USA under the brand TVG. It is legal to take bets on horse racing in the US online according to, depending on who your lawyers are, either 28 or 38 states. So we were very conservative and only took bets in 28. I also, while in that role, looked at all the social online game companies that we could find that did some form of gambling for virtual currency, and led the investment in Kabam, which is now one of the biggest social game companies, and was on the board there for a while. We launched this company with a very clear focus, day one, on social gaming, and we are now moving as planned into real money gambling as well. The world is converging, and we're at the forefront of it.
Thanks, Gerard.
So I started my career as a litigator at a large Chicago law firm. In 2007, I was asked by the governor of Illinois to become the deputy chief counsel to the governor and also the general counsel to the lottery. Now, if you guys know, Illinois is a huge gambling state. We have a number of riverboat casinos, a huge racing industry, and a lottery that generated over $2.2 billion a year in revenue. It was one of the largest revenue generators for the state of Illinois. So when we were going through a budget deficit of $12 billion in Illinois, we were looking at various ways to better monetize our assets. And one of the things that occurred to us was that we could not sell our lottery tickets under existing law at the time online. There were people that were lining up for hours at a 7-Eleven to purchase a Powerball ticket or a Mega Millions ticket when the jackpot was $500 million, but they couldn't get on their iPhone or iPad and just click a button and purchase the ticket. So in 2009, when basically there was a federal prohibition under the Wire Act against any kind of internet wagering across state lines, we decided to challenge that on behalf of the state of Illinois. And I was appointed by the governor as the lead person to deal with the organized crime division of the Department of Justice, which regulated all the gambling issues, to try to basically convince them to change their position on the Wire Act. Under the Bush administration, that held that any kind of wagering across state lines, even if it was legalized by a state, was in violation of federal law. So basically, over the course of a year and a half, I had to become an expert in internet gambling, from all the legal issues as well as the technology issues and public policy issues surrounding it, and worked with the DOJ in what ultimately resulted in a monumental decision that came out in 2011 that basically said, you know what, we were wrong, the Wire Act only applies to sports betting and nothing else. Since then, I've been working with governors and legislators across the country trying to help them shape the regulatory landscape around internet gambling in the United States, and am currently a GCN executive at a very interesting company that I can't tell anybody anything about right now, that's going to be doing some very interesting launches within the next 6 months or so in the social gaming gambling space.
Thanks, Melissa. So one footnote to that, I think the role that Melissa played and the outcome that was obtained in connection with the DOJ reversing their opinion is really one of the things that has kind of led to this ushering in this flood of activity with respect to online gaming. There's other aspects as well, but the fact that states can now permit intrastate online gaming has led to a lot of the activity that we're seeing, and a lot of the rest of it is the anticipation of more states doing it, and interstate compacts and all the other things that will make the market even bigger. And it seems like in part, there's a lot of companies that are doing, and we'll talk tonight about the distinction between real money gambling and non-real money gambling, and how some companies are trying to position by leveraging non-real money gambling platforms to be ready for bigger and better things as real money gambling becomes more available. Briefly, my name is Jim Gatto, and as Ben said, we kind of co-founded and co-head the social media and games team here at Pillsbury. We have about 70 lawyers who kind of focus in this space. It covers really a whole range of legal areas, IP, corporate. We've got Justin Hovey who's here. A lot of the regulatory side we do.
I see Mike Sullivan in the back.
And Mike Sullivan as well. Thank you, Mike. I can't see that far. That's why I bring the youthful guy with me here. We covered a lot of the financial regulatory issues around virtual currency, and what's interesting from this perspective is, in looking at the non-real money gambling, there's a lot of issues and misconceptions around virtual currency and the role it plays in connection with whether certain activities are legal or not legal, and we'll cover some of that tonight. So without further ado, let's kind of get into some of the issues here. We're going to also cover, I should say, in the beginning, we're going to cover some of just the kind of the business landscape. What's going on out there? Who are some of the players? There's a lot of deals that are happening. What's kind of driving that? So we'll cover a little bit of that, and then we'll cover the legal issues that flow from that. So let me, actually, I'm going to just sit here. Just flip this. It's not going to be it's going to be more of a panel discussion. If you guys have questions as we go along, please feel free to jump in. But just to kind of set the context, we're talking about gamification. How many people have heard the term gamification before and know what it means? How many of you heard the term gamification? Right. So gamification is the kind of the use of game mechanics for non-game purposes, right? As a crude working definition. Gamification is the use of gambling mechanics for non-gambling purposes, and by that we mean the non-real money gambling. So it's doing things that look like gambling, they feel like gambling, it has the excitement of gambling. People think they're winning something, even if they don't win anything of value. It's that side of the activities that we're talking about when we talk about gamification. It is a huge and growing area. There's a lot of different facets to it. We're only going to be able to scratch the surface tonight. There's many different ways in which this is being implemented from a business perspective. There's a ton of legal issues. As we'll see in some of the things we're going to talk about, each of the business models that people are adopting around gamification, you change one fact and it can go from being legal to illegal. So it's really important to really scrutinize your business model and make sure you know what you're doing and you've got it covered. And you don't say, well, we're kind of like this company out there and they haven't been shut down yet, so we must be okay. I mean, those are the things you want to try to avoid. And there is kind of an increasing level of activity from the standpoint of regulatory enforcement. We'll talk a little bit tonight about some of the more kind of popular or kind of well-known ones, but there's a lot more activity on the part of the regulators, a lot more scrutiny that's going on, and I think that given that many of these activities, it's not just civil fines, potentially criminal charges and jail time, you want to be really careful in kind of what you do and what you don't do. So again, just to kind of set the level, there's a range of things. There's illegal gambling, which you want to stay away from, obviously. There's lotteries, which typically only the states can run, with very limited exceptions. Then there's legal regulated gambling in the U.S. So there's very limited things that you can actually do right now in the U.S. that is actual real money gambling that's legal. But almost all those activities, or pretty much all those activities, even if they're legal, you need a license to do it. So, it's not like you can just go out and do things because, online poker is now permissible in certain states. You can't just go out and open your own poker site. You still need to be licensed to do it. So the kind of above the line here are typically either the illegal or real money gambling activities. And below the line are kind of the things we're going to focus a little bit more on tonight. And that is, all of the non-real money casino type games that are out there through mobile apps and otherwise, contest and sweepstakes based business models. A lot of people are using the fact that contest and sweepstakes are legal. There's a lot of people who are creating business models that leverage the contest and sweepstakes type model and building a whole business around that. There's a lot of activity within social games themselves where there's either mini games or other activities where people win, whether it's virtual currency or other things. There's prediction markets, which are basically, again, there's for money and non-real money prediction markets where you basically pick, there's a yes, no, or a, kind of a digital outcome. It's a binary outcome. It's either a yes, no, and you can, essentially wager on that in general without using real money. You see a bunch of player-to-player betting platforms around, gaming activity and a whole host of other activities. So those are just kind of some examples to kind of set the framework. So with that, let's kind of get into a little bit of the, kind of the competitive landscape. There's a lot of different players out there that are coming at this from different perspectives. You've got casinos, you've got Indian tribes, you've got social game companies, you've got some of the Betfairs and others of the world who are kind of operating online gambling platforms outside the U.S. where it's legal, and you have a whole bunch of startups trying to create different interesting models around all that. George, maybe you can kind of lead off and kind of talk a little bit about kind of just the climate. What's going on out there? What are you seeing from a business perspective and the opportunities and kind of how the different players are kind of attacking the market, if you will?
Sure. So first of all, the real money gambling market is in 2015 going to be about a $500 billion business globally, of which about $50 billion will be online and mobile, of which the growth is coming from mobile and the USA. So that narrows it down pretty quickly for me about what we should do. The $500 billion market is really has been constrained dramatically in its growth by regulations, because you've got to wait for a new country to write new laws to go and enter that market and then add another 10 billion, another 20 billion, whatever the number is. And the USA is this huge, very, very wealthy, very, very large market that has just gone unregulated or banned until now. So very, very exciting opportunity. I personally have been involved in lobbying in the US and working in Illinois and in state capitals across the country and in Washington. And it is going to be slow. It's very exciting, but it's slow. It'll be state by state. The model is already in place with horse racing, where each state will write its own laws. There'll be some states that write some laws that cross borders and allow them to be central hubs, I suppose. But it's going to be so slow. So it's a great opportunity, but it's very slow. So there's a lot of excitement rushing right now this month at New Jersey. That'll be the first big experiment. They're switching on online betting on, I think, the 20th of this month. It will be a very expensive experiment for all of the 12 casinos and the 50-odd skins that have been licensed. And I'm looking forward to learning from that experiment. And we're all much, much more interested in the bigger states coming online. So that's my context, if you will. Within that world, everyone in Europe who, whether they make slots, whether they feed those slots into casinos, whether online or in brick and mortar, the guys who run the casinos, the guys who run payments, everyone is looking at the USA and really trying to find a way to get in because of that growth as I described it. A lot of them have got serious problems because they've broken the law in the USA and have got to deal with major regulatory issues. Others have broken patents, so have got real problems. So we start getting into companies like microgaming and Playtech, where they're going to have a really tough time because of legal issues with both patents and they're breaking the law in the past. I'm told they broke the law. Just to be
We
clear.
say allegedly.
I've got no idea. And then we've got a lot of people in the USA who've never run a real money business, thinking that it is a path to riches, that it'll be very easy to just walk in and make a huge amount of money, who are going head to head and may not quite understand yet the incumbents, the land-based casinos, the operators of the state lotteries. They want their share of this, and they're going to do their best to keep out any new players. So it's going to be a fascinating battle as we go forward. I'm personally excited that we've focused in on mobile first. We're now on desktop and Facebook. And we started off with virtual currency that allowed us to really hone our games, hone our content, get the scale operations going. And now we have a real money platform licensed in the UK, and we're now going to start scaling over there and bring that expertise here in the USA. So we're very, very excited, with very, very slow expectations of how big it'll be and how quickly. Does that help?
That's very helpful. Melissa, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I think, as Gerard said, it's going to be on a state-by-state basis that this is going to happen. It's already, Nevada was the very first to launch and go online in April this year, and they did just poker, internet poker, on an intrastate basis. Delaware has legalized, and New Jersey is legalized, but that's about it right now. What's interesting is that within each state, you have very different gaming landscapes and very different, what I call stakeholders that have different powers within that state. So for example, you have lotteries, which are very powerful in some states and not powerful in other states. You have Indian tribes, you have the horse racing industry, and you have land-based casinos. So depending on the gaming landscape and the dynamics of each state, this is going to unfold very, very differently. For example, in Nevada, obviously all the casinos have a license to operate internet poker, but in Delaware it's all being done through the Delaware Lottery, with the racetracks being kind of integrated into that. And in New Jersey, even though they have a lottery as well as a racing industry, it's all being done through the Atlantic City casinos. And what you're noticing is that whereas originally you would anticipate, casinos would probably hire technology companies to provide them with the technology they need to operate internet gambling, what you're seeing happen is that various B2B businesses and B2C businesses are pivoting and changing their business structure in order to be able to participate in legal jurisdictions. For example, a California American Indian tribe that owns the Pala Casino, in order to be able to participate in the internet gambling market, because California has not yet legalized, they went ahead and they purchased all the technology that they need to be a technology provider in New Jersey. And they're going for licensing in New Jersey, even though it's a casino. You're seeing a casino-to-casino type of joint venture so that they can monetize on the legal internet gaming market. Same with Ultimate Poker, which is now operating the largest Nevada poker site. It's one of only two. They're owned by the Fertittas who own Stations Casino. That's a casino going into New Jersey to be an internet gaming provider to another casino. So it's just interesting to see all these various entities and companies changing their business model to try to take advantage of what's going to be a huge emerging market in the U.S.
Can I just add, two of the other ones that are very interesting to me are BUIN and coming in, and they're a B2C company over in Europe, and they're a B2B company here in New Jersey. And it's going to be fascinating to see how well that works out.
Right, and Steve Wynn, who has only, he has an amazing brand, but only one casino in Nevada. Nevada's a tiny state with only intrastate legalization. He was trying to get licensed in New Jersey. Not clear exactly, for what purpose, but clearly, probably to try to bring the Wynn brand into a larger market. And those are very interesting type of relationships and bed partners you're seeing form in this landscape, all because it's such a huge multi-billion-dollar industry that's going to emerge.
I think one of the things that's interesting to kind of add to that is some of the companies, so the casinos traditionally have used technology companies to buy slot machines and do a lot of their progressive jackpot technology, their back end, and the IGTs, or Aristocrats, and other companies. They're all saying, well, we got the technology, we're going to be the online gambling providers. And so, while they still do business with the casinos, there's an interesting, they're another kind of avenue, another play that they're trying to become the kind of the front for a lot of this stuff as well. So I think it's an interesting dynamic in a landscape. We'll see, who the winners are. It kind of leads into the kind of next question I had Gerard, you emphasized, I think, at least 3 times how things on the real money gambling are going to move slowly. So what are people doing now to position themselves with the non-real money gambling? And what do you see going on there at this time? And if you'd also address one other thing with that, as we talked about earlier, there's this perception. There's been some partnerships between some social game companies and companies who have done traditional online gaming in Europe or elsewhere, the regulated real money markets. I think there's a perception that you take something like Zynga Poker, and if poker became legal, you could flip a switch, and all of a sudden you'd have a profitable business. Maybe you could address kind of that piece of it as well, and kind of where social fits in at this point.
Sure. So first of all, just on Zynga, let's start with Zynga, go out from there. So Zynga has not given up its dreams of real money gambling. It has put them on hold in the USA right now, but they are live with B-Win Party, I think it is, over in Europe. And I have heard that it's not going that well. It's been very hard for a B2C company. There's a very fast-moving, internet-oriented company to then deal with the highly regulated B2C company that's trying to be a B2B company. So it's really very, very slow for them. They haven't just suddenly broken out. This is a market that if you want to gamble online, you have been advertised to for the last 15 years. It is not a new notion. And the rules of poker are the rules of poker. It's hard to make that too much more sexy. You can't do what people claim that they do with Zynga Poker, which is change the odds a little bit to make it more fun and interesting. So they're having a tough time in the UK. And there's a number of companies who are doing things like that over in Europe as an experiment. And then here in the US, I think what you can see is if you just look at the charts of the social game companies, of iOS, Android, Amazon, and Facebook, you can see that the big real money gambling companies have now got a predominant place in that list of games, in that list. What's happened after the IGT purchase of Double Down is everyone has decided they really need to be in this space. They see it as a great way to get an email list of players so that when the rules change, they can go into those states. Maybe get some brand recognition so that when the rules change, they go out. And it also allows them to start maybe becoming faster moving than they are right now. An IGT, for example, doesn't release that many new slot games every year into real money casinos, into brick and mortar casinos. It's a very hard, slow process. And whereas online, we're used to the idea we can release things very, very fast. And that's helping them get prepared for the internet speed of this new world. We actually believe that they're still not going to get there fast enough. We think we can produce a lot more content than they can, much, much faster, because we're bringing in people who come from those companies, but also have much, much more internet experience. So we'll see how we get on against them, but we think speed and quantity is going to be our winning secret against those guys.
Liz, any thoughts on the kind of the overlap or lack of overlap between the social gaming companies and the online gambling?
I mean, I think that what social gaming companies are doing right now is going to be of significant value in the real money gambling space in a lot of different ways. One thing we didn't really talk that much about is lotteries. And lotteries fall generally outside of the legislative regulatory framework that we talked about in terms of New Jersey and Nevada and Delaware, because lotteries are generally state-conducted entities in the U.S. And Illinois was the very first lottery to go online as a result of what we did, and the Georgia lottery's gone online. But they don't. A lot of the lotteries are not going to need legislation to go online. What they're waiting for is interesting, innovative content, which is not going to look like casino games or slot machines. It's going to look a lot more like casual social games that can have a lottery back end, which is a random outcome type of back end attached to it that would be similar to the model of what would be a scratch-off ticket, but it would be interactive and far more interesting and a totally new type of lottery game. And that's a huge area of potential for social and casual gaming companies to look into, in addition to the casino side of things and the slot machines. So I do think there's amazing opportunity out there for those companies with the proper legal guidance to configure their business and their games to be something that could be of huge value to some of these players.
Yeah. And there's been a number of acquisitions in the space. There's a couple up on the slide. Gerard mentioned the IGT acquisition of Double Down, which was a $500 million deal. Caesars has bought a couple of kind of social game development companies, Buffalo Studios and Playtica, and you're seeing some kind of mergers. Bally's is getting ready to close a deal with Shuffle. So there's a lot of money on chasing the real money gambling part. And so it's George said, it's interesting to see what happens. Making big bets right now, and we'll see, as the market develops and as the legislation develops, how that all unfolds. So that's a lot of that is kind of the real money gambling side. We're going to focus a little more on the kind of the non-real money gambling. What are the opportunities now? Those are opportunities that are present but longer term. There's a lot of interesting models that people are adopting that leverage the gamification concept. So we're going to talk a little bit about just some of the legal issues around this. The first thing I wanted to actually have Ben talk about a little bit is, whenever there's a rapid pace of innovation, patents always follow. And there is an incredible number of patents being filed in this space right now by all the companies we've talked about already, and a ton of companies that are trying to get into this space and have different business models around some of the gamification concepts. So Ben, can you talk a little bit about what can you patent in this space?
Yes, and to start off, though, I wanted to just make a point that Gamblification, the broad definition that Jim gave earlier, extends to more than kind of the social casino games that we're seeing in mobile and online. It extends to other types of mobile and online games where there's a stochastic outcome, right, where people can play mini games to win, virtual items for that game. All that stuff is kind of a gamification model, and it's been proven by these companies to be a very powerful way to monetize users. I remember reading a few years ago about a study where they took some lab rats and they put them in a cage, and if they pushed a button, they would get a piece of food. Another group, if they pushed a button, they would get shocked, and a third group, it was they didn't know which one they were going to get. It was stochastic. And the first two groups, obviously the ones that got shocked, stopped pushing the button pretty quickly. The ones who pushed the food stopped pushing once they got full. The ones who didn't know what they were going to get kept pushing the button, pushing the button, pushing the button, pushing the button. And I think that tells us why this mechanic is so powerful, even in games that aren't. That tells us why social casinos succeed when maybe it's not really intuitive why they do, but also why that mechanic is so powerful in monetizing users in other kinds of games. Patents in the space are extremely important, particularly as the social games start to mix with the real money games. Real money regulated game companies, particularly the slot machine companies, for a long time have understood the power of patents, and companies like IGT have portfolios that are thousands of patents strong. Oftentimes when we meet with companies, the thing that they don't understand is what the real value of patents are going to be to their company. They think the value of patents are going to be that they're going to go out and sue other people for infringing their patents. That's not really the case. The true power of their portfolio is going to be preventing other people from suing them for patent infringement. So as mechanics between real money gaming and the social games start to overlap, I think what we may start to see is some of the more traditional regulated gaming companies that have robust patent portfolios start to look to monetize those portfolios by looking at social games that are perhaps infringing some of the mechanics they've come up with previously around gambling. And one way to make sure that doesn't happen to you if you're a smaller company is to have a portfolio of patents that could perhaps be leveraged against them. Oftentimes when clients come to us to talk about, hey, there's someone infringing my patent, we want to sue them for infringement, one of the first questions we ask is, do they have any patents that they could enforce against you? For companies like IGT and Aristocrat that are large companies with large revenues, if they have 5 patents that can be, or 6 patents that could be, that could possibly be infringed by a smaller company, but that smaller company has 1 patent that covers one of their very successful slot machines, the trade in revenue, if they were to both bring their claims and both were to be found to infringe, would end up in the favor of the smaller company, because the portion of the larger revenue stream would give them a larger recovery in the trial. So patents are a way for smaller companies to make sure that you're able to compete in the marketplace, that you're able to go forward, and that you aren't precluded from some of these mechanics to get closer and closer to the regulated gaming mechanics when the larger, more established companies decide they want to monetize those portfolios.